think of. It's called Methodological Solipsism, considered a research strategy in cognitive psychology. And she said that you have to read this essay because it gives you an entry to the kind of philosophy of mind and philosophy of cognitive science, which is being worked, is being discussed right now. And she also said that this is the way to go now. That was in the 90s. But this book was, this paper was written in 1979. And I thought it would be interesting to quote from that paper what methodological solipsism is and why it got me thinking. Porter says that methodological solipsism in psychology is a view that psychological states should be constructed without reference to anything beyond the boundary of the individual who has those mental states, those psychological states. So this claim actually is identified with the claim that in order to individuate mental states as the mental states they are, we need to really confine ourselves within the boundary of the human mind, or rather the boundary of the person's mind. And if you allow me, to the person's brain. This view that was strongly influenced, that had strongly influenced cognitive science, also endorsed another view, which was extremely popular in philosophy of mind and also in philosophy of cognitive science. The view that I have in mind is representationalism. Now, even in January this year, when I was asked by my son that, what is your New Year's resolution? I told him that I wanted to understand representationalism, and I wanted to understand why it is so bad. Yet, why is it so effective? Okay, so this was the other thing that was going on in my mind. Now, when one claims that, you know, you need to identify everything that is in the mind by merely referring to whatever is internal to you, then one is expressing a kind of Cartesian belief, the belief that the mind is self-contained with respect to everything else, and in my case, the world. Now, if we indeed believe in this Cartesian insight, and if we also believe in the Cartesian cogito, then we are in a perpetual state of uncertainty, because you know, there seems to be a connection between subjectivity and veracity, and objectivity and skepticism. So, in plainer terms, the Cartesian insight was that we could be sure of ourselves, but about the rest of the world, we can never be sure of. And this really took me back to one of my early interests in my academic life, that is the problem of perception, and the kind of theories that we were taught as children. Now, when I went to London for my graduate studies, I enrolled myself in a course that was being hosted in King's College, but was offered by philosophers who, were teaching in all the colleges under London University. So there was Tim Crane and Gabriel Sagal and David Papineau. All of them were giving a seminar on content. And there I was told by them that this Cartesian insight gave rise to the notion of narrow content of mental states and their individuative role in vis-a-vis mental states. And to my utter shock, I found out that the two persons I sort of held as my intellectual gurus were the father of the notion of narrow content, and they were Frege and Russell. Now, Sagal and Tim Crane and Papineau, they all endorsed to this view that the descriptivist tradition in philosophy, which we identify with the works of Gottlob Frege and Bertrand Russell, they were definitely endorsing a narrow content view mental states. Now, the idea that they thought was central to their belief that the descriptive tradition was also internalist in spirit is that both Frege and Russell treated empty terms in a particular way. And they thought that contents of thoughts, which in order to express, we use empty terms, are such that those thoughts need to be understood in terms of narrow content, where narrow content is identified strictly within the personal boundary or rather the brain boundary. They also concluded that other terms, not only empty terms like unicorn or Sherlock Holmes, but all other terms need to be seen in that way. So it was believed that the descriptivist tradition in semantics gave rise to the internalist, Cartesian, representationalist tradition in philosophy of mind. Now, I have also used the word representationalism, and I'm just saying just one small thing about representationalism. I take it to be a certain picture of mind where the mind, and I quote here my other real hero, Davidson, the mind is seen as a theater in which the conscious self is watching a passing show. And this show consists not of actual objects like this car or my computer screen, but rather they are just their purported representatives. Okay, so they could be, sense data, appearances, or the given of the experience. Okay. It is also believed that if we see our mental states in this way, then we see the relation between the mind and the world in a particular way. We have to believe that our thoughts relate to the world in essentially and indirectly. Indirectly, why? Because they are always related to the objects of the world and the world as such by means of certain inner specifications which are common both to thoughts which are indeed about actual objects and thoughts which are about fictitious entities. Okay? So we could have thoughts which only indirectly and inessentially relate to the world, and our having those thoughts have nothing to do with how the world is. So if the extramental reality doesn't oblige my thought, I can still have the thought. This is the idea of the narrow content of our mental states. So this makes, our relation with the world inessential and also makes it, completely fortuitous. Okay. And the idea of narrow content, as I understand, extreme importance in cognitive science and cognitive psychology. And the reason why, Fodor back then in 79 says that we have to take the narrow stance in order to build up a cognitive psychology. He says that because mental states need to be identified in terms of narrow content in order for them to have the kind of causal explanatory power that they have in cognitive psychology. So you cannot do the kind of stuff that you want to do with mental states in cognitive science, in cognitive psychology and philosophy of mind, if you identify them in terms of things that really fall outside the mind. Okay. Now, why is it? Why do we think like this? The argument goes like this. When we mention, and here I am quoting from McDowell, when we mention an object in describing a thought, we are giving only an extrinsic characterization of the thought. Since the mention of the object takes us actually outside our mind. But there must be, according to the narrow content theorists and internalists, a kind of intrinsic characterization of the mental states. And so we need to specify what is the essential core of mental states. And in order to do so, we end up with the Cartesian insight that mental states are to be identified in terms of their inner, internal, internalistic, individualistic, narrow content. Now, this leaves us with a very unsettling predicament. This makes the mind in eternal exile from the world. And more significantly, it also makes the mind in eternal exile from all other minds. And it also makes the world ever elusive. Now, I had really great discomfort in this idea. And during my MPhil days in Jadavpur, I was taught by Chanda Gupta, who made me understand that these classical binaries like the intrinsic and the extrinsic, and the subjective and the objective, and scheme and content, and mind and world, and self and other, and inner and outer, these binaries need to be dismantled. And she, being an internal realist, had her own reasons for doing so. Now, for me, it seemed to me, with the very close reading of it, I did for quite some time, almost 10 years. What I felt is that, I really don't understand what internal is, and sometimes I don't even understand what external is. This was my feeling, okay? And one may think that, you are writing and you are researching on externalism, internalism debate, and you are having questions regarding the dichotomy between the inner and the outer, the internal and the external, then, your entire project is, if you think like that, this will go against you. Well, I think yes and no. It does go against me in one sense because, of course, it really makes me skeptical about my research topic, which is the externalism, internalism debate, and its validity, its understanding in popular orthodoxy and even in academic orthodoxy. And no, because the debate, and especially the way that a few externalists see their position in the debate, really made me understand what could be my position in all this. So my real, genuine question was, is there really a distinction between the inner and the outer? And why is it that we think that we indeed understand them? It seems that both the orthodox internalist and the orthodox externalist assume both. They assume that there is a distinction and they also understand it. I, however, think neither. And I think that in order to understand the mind and its relation to the world, and the world and its relation to our minds, and in order to, get out of that dangerous predicament of having a mind that is in eternal exile and trying to, understand the world, which is ever elusive, we actually have to redefine and look anew at the mind-world relationship. And here in the book, I have taken help from insights of a few phenomenologists who are trying to say that the relation between the mind and the world is such that the relation constitutes the relata. Okay, so the relata being the mind and the world, and the relation being such that it constitutes both the world and the mind. Okay. Now, the way that we have within the Cartesian tradition, which has given birth both to externalism and to the descriptive tradition, we do not see how the world could constitute the mind and how the mind in its turn could be, how the world could be understood only in relation to the mind. Okay. So apparently it seems not to be happening. So I tried to, understand the world in a different way and also the mind in a different. In philosophy or in anything, you really can't be that original. So in order to understand the world, I took the help of neo-Kantians. And here I have especially Wilfrid Sellars and John McDowell in mind, where they are actually trying to go against the empiricist tradition, where it is believed that in experience, the world is given to us in its true guise in the form of a given. Okay, so both McDowell and Sellars countered this very much, to my liking, because as an MPhil student in Jadavpur, I wrote a thesis on Davidson, where Davidson is actually denying the scheme content dualism. Okay, and he is also there he is actually rejecting a foundationalism which believes in the idea of the bare given that is available in an epistemological justificatory role. So I really drew those insights there, and I constructed the idea of the world, which is not a mere given, but the very simple idea that I would like to endorse is that the world that we can talk about and the world that we can think about and the world that we can theorize about is the world that we can think about and theorize about and talk about. That is the only world that we have. Okay. So to think that there can be this kind of a pristine given, untouched by the human mind is a myth. Okay. So I am not going into all that because the book talks about it. Anyone is going to ask any question regarding that, I'm happy to answer. So this is how I construct the world. And this is not something that I did. This is something that was done before. Now, I really seriously want to also question the conception of mind that sort of generates this externalist internalist debate, and it seems to me that that was really strongly influenced by the descriptivist tradition as well as the representationalist tradition. And I start off by following the Wittgensteinian dictum that if you think that in order to know what I have in mind, you need to really tap into a secret repository, then you would never know what I have in mind, and there is no hope of yours understanding me or my language. And so he says that if you really think that mind is secret, incommunicable thoughts, then if God looked into our minds, he would not be able to see there whom we were thinking of or whom we are speaking of. Okay. And then if you ask me, who are you speaking of? Or if you want to know who I am thinking of, the best way of doing it is to follow my eyes and see who I'm looking at. Okay. So with this very simple insight, and with the kind of discomfort that I had about, Papino and Tim Crane and and Russell as the philosophical progenitors of narrow content, I really looked into the works of Frege and Russell, and it seemed to me that if we read them carefully, I don't want to just say that this about Russell, but also about Frege, and especially the way he handles then we shall realize that in these terms, they do believe in a principle which then became kind of guiding principle for me. The principle, very simply stated, is this, that we have at least a few thoughts which are such that that thought is supposed to be about doesn't exist, then we can never have that thought. And if there is another object instead of the object that I'm thinking of in its place, which probably is descriptively exactly same as the object that I have in mind, then I would have a different thought. So the idea is same object, same thought, different object, different thought. Now, if our mental states, I could have at least one mental state which was like that, then why am I going to think that the default condition of thought would be empty thoughts, and the default condition of meanings of terms would be meanings of empty terms, and the default condition of our cognition would be non-theoretical cognition. Okay, so all these interests of mine seem to converge in this idea, this project of trying to find at least one case where we can say that there isn't an object, there isn't a thought. In that sense, the world has a really constitutive relation with my mind. My mind cannot entertain certain thoughts unless the world sort of comes in and constitutes the thought that I have. And I made use of Evans and McDowell's analysis of perceptual demonstrative thoughts. And this is where the book gets really technical, where I am really talking about the semantics of demonstrative terms, and especially of perceptual demonstrative terms. And I took the help of a concept to explain how indeed the object in question is entering into the very identity of the thought. And here I also had tried to develop an idea of a constitutive relation that the externalists talk about. They say that the external world constitutively, uh, uh, determines our mental states. How do we understand that constitutive relation? That is something that I tried to do. And in doing so, I took help of the mnemonic conception of Tadvyaktitva, and especially I took help of this. And what I am trying to say here very briefly is that, everybody would accept that the external world exercises a kind of causal control over me. Like, for example, I see PS written right in front of me, and then I also see written below it Pinaki shortcut, and these words cause me to have the belief that Pinaki shortcut is logged in. Okay, so of course there is a causal relation between the world, especially and this belief of mine. But what the externalists would like to say that the world has not just a causal relation with my mental state, but also a constitutive relation, in the sense that in absence of Pinaki Shorkar, I wouldn't have the belief. And in the presence of some other person, I would have a different belief. Now, how does that happen? Now, the thing is that one may ask that, why is an object causing you to have a belief? Okay. This may be the question that I ask. And for example, I may have a belief like the present Prime Minister of India is Narendra Modi. Okay, I may have this belief, and I may then go on saying that, believing that Narendra is going to announce is going to address the Republic Day parade, etc., all these things. And one may say that, okay, so Narendra Modi is the cause of your thought, your belief. And why is he the cause of your belief that he will be speaking on the Republic Day, addressing the nation on the Republic Day? It is because he fulfills the description of being the Prime Minister of India, okay, or being the person fit to address the nation on a Republic Day, etc., etc. But when I have a demonstrative thought, this doesn't happen. Okay, when I say, for example, this is cold, and I'm touching this is hot, and I'm touching my cup. Okay, and I'm saying this is hot, and I'm using a genuine demonstrative. Then, in the absence of this cup, this demonstrative would just not work. And in the presence of a qualitatively indistinguishable cup, this demonstrative will not work, in the sense that it would be a different demonstrative. Okay? So those of you who would be really interested or intrigued by what I have, whatever little I have said here, and go and demonstrative thought is not that it has certain characteristics, but rather that it is this cup. This cup, causes me to have this demonstrative thought because it is the cup it is. So the causal efficacious property that this cup possesses so that it becomes the object of my demonstrative thought is not some abstract property that any other cup can satisfy. The property is actually being the object it is, and that is nothing but the object itself. So this Nobunayo technique really gets me around all these descriptivist really makes a connection between objects of the world and thoughts. And by way of doing this, I hope that I have been able to show in my book that we need to see the inner-outer distinction with a pinch of salt, and we also need to accept that that which can be external can also be intrinsic to the mind. And hence, again, the inner-outer distinction is not such a hard, fast distinction as we took it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jain. It's a wonderful talk. I have two or couple of questions which I have noted down, and I would like to ask you for the further discussions. So, can you hear me, Professor Shen?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Can
yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Was there
yes.
any, glitch? No glitches, I hope.
Sometimes your screen is freezing, so sometimes.
Oh.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's fine. But I'm just curious to know that in your talk that you were talking about the dismantling this inner and outer binary. But given the background of analytic philosophy you have had, did you find it to be difficult to go beyond that binary while you were sketching your arguments for your books?
Of course, I did. I did. There was a great deal of reservation about dissolving this binary. And of course, I keep thinking this, that one may say that, we do sort of feel that there is something inside that is not quite outside. And there may be something outside which is also not inside. And so, in a kind of deeply phenomenological sense and also existential sense, when we sort of find ourselves lost, not being able to fit in, we do feel that there is an inner world, and whereas there is an outer world. But I think, and more this is becoming clear to me, that the world that I take to be inner, okay, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my moods, my identity, my persona, my self-awareness, my sense of myself, my sense of my own mental states, my sense of myself in the world, all these things are not things that have been generated purely within me. For example, my recent work is mostly on self-awareness. And in many places, I have tried to argue that this idea that we usually associate with self-awareness as being a kind of inner recording of a mere subjectivity, or just inner a recording of an innerness, okay, that is something that I do not accept. I think that our self-awareness is largely constituted by many things which are not within that strict inner boundary, or cannot be understood by a mere subjective presence, in terms of a mere subjective presence. And if this thing, which is supposed to be absolutely sacrosanct, subjective, and sacrosanct, narrow, if that itself is, penetrated by culture, language, others, politics, the world, and in a very significant sense, my body, and my body in the world, and my body identity, then it is time that we at least diffuse the boundary between the inner and the outer.
Another question that I have in my mind, since you have referred to Gadadhara and especially the Navya tradition in your book and your talk as well. I'm just curious whether you had this comparative philosophical framework that we are currently discussing in your mind while you were writing your book.
Not really, not really, not really. And I keep saying this wherever I go, is that, the kind of upbringing that we had in the Indian scenario, at least in West Bengal, because that is what I know mostly of the academic curriculum that was followed in West Bengal in the time that we were students. We were being taught everything. We were being taught Kant. We would have a class on Kant. We would be reading, let's say, Prolegomena, and then the next class would be on Kushumanjali, and the next class we would be reading Cartesian meditations, and the next class we would be doing Methodological. And so I myself, I do not really see myself as a comparative philosopher, but I see myself as a product of colonial education, and an education system which was built by academics, Indian academics, who were desperately trying to provide the future generation with both classical Indian philosophy, due to their own nationalistic fervor and their deep faith in the way that philosophy was done in classical India, and also their belief that students needed to know modern logic, they needed to be exposed to the phenomenological tradition, and of course, they needed to know analytic philosophy. So I was drawing in resources from wherever I got. So I do not see myself as a comparative philosopher, and I don't think I have that that expertise. But I would draw resources from wherever I get. And so, for example, I spoke in the book about Husserl, but I do not claim myself to be a Husserl scholar. But I did take help of certain ideas, which may possibly go with my other ideas, which Husserl doesn't accept. You see, so you could say that I am a kind of, I don't know, a cultural nomad, but this is what I feel. I myself, as a philosopher, I do not see myself as a Western philosopher or an Indian philosopher or an Indian philosopher doing Western philosophy or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, time for your answers. Before we
Are
take,
there anyone else who would be interested in asking any questions?
yeah, we'll take questions. But we have Professor Amita Chatterjee with us. Professor Chatterjee, listen to me, Professor Chatterjee. Hello, Professor Chatterjee.
She's mute, Nilambar. Ma'am, can you unmute yourself, please?
There's a mic on the top panel. Yeah.
Actually, there are too many glitches. I couldn't hear Madhucchanda say properly. And so, you know, I cannot put my questions right now because I missed most of the talk.
Oh, that's a shame.
There was
Yeah.
so much of glitches and so much of disturbance, and I missed almost the 70% of the talk. And
Oh dear.
so,
Thank
but
you for
as you
being
know,
here. Thank you for being here.
and it was really a pleasure once again going back to the old problem with which we actually grappled for such a long time, and it still remains unsolved and interesting. And so there are so many different ways of looking at this particular problem. And what I was enjoying is your idea of being a philosophical nomad. And I thought that we were all, fusionists, fusion philosophers, because we
The product of
we
cultural hybridity. Yes.
yes, we use the tool of Western thought to solve the problems of Indian philosophy, and also the tools of Indian philosophy to solve the Western problems. And another area which Madhuchanda didn't actually mention today about, that from where we actually started deviating towards this is that Patna and Twina thought experiment. That was another,
Yes.
point of
Departure.
importance, departure
Yes.
from where actually we arrived at this particular problem. So I don't have any specific question right now, because as I have told you that I missed the almost 70% of your talk, but I really enjoyed, and thanks to Nilambar for reminding me and also sending me the link.
Yeah. So this talk is open for discussion. Anybody has any question they can ask.
Can I ask?
Uh,
Can you hear me?
Rakesh da.
Good evening. Lovely listening to your talk. Two small queries, but not entirely related to the entire corpus of your work. But one, I think a simpler kind of a question is, it does seem that the whole internalistic talk somehow or the other is parasitic upon the externalistic talk. So the way you began with the essay that you mentioned of Fodor, that, you know, there's this special kind of an access that we have to ourselves in which we do not have to the other. That whole language, somehow or the other, in a philosophical perspective, not so much, because Fodor is not really coming from where the others are coming, seems to be that. That's one. The other was that post Kant, many years later, when you find Schopenhauer writing, he also has this whole thing of the subjective attitude and the objective attitude, and where he says that what you were also, even in your responses to one of the questions, was saying that there is a peculiar sense in which our will and our action and our thought and our body are available to us, in which they are not available to the others. And then Schopenhauer has a very curious kind of a thing that he says, but that leads us to methodological solipsism. But to believe that only I have that access and others don't have would be mad. So I was wondering that, you know, though intuitively so plausible, yet the kind of training that we had makes it very difficult for us to take that position, because we would like to say that, particularly in the propositional view of knowledge, the access that we have and the justification and the epistemic justification that we would have to give, even for our knowledge of our will, would have to have the same standards as they would have for attributing will and the knowledge of will to the others. So I was just wondering, how would you respond to these rather strange questions?
Well, hang on, I am trying to remember the first question. Can you just remind me, the first
The one
question was about?
the internalistic vocabulary being parasitic.
Yeah. Right. Well, I don't really agree with that. I mean, I mean, this is really not. This is about your understanding of the internalists and my understanding of the internalists. Okay, so the thing is that this kind of attitude I keep seeing in many cases, Rakesh. For example, let us go back to very old texts. Okay, so let us go back to our age-old problem of perception. Okay, there, when Russell is saying that we can never have access to the physical object directly, we only have access to sense data, what is phenomenologically given to us, and that which is phenomenologically given to us in a veridical perception and in non-veridical perception is the same. And where he is saying that hence we never see the object, but we only infer the existence of the object and then the nature of the object from what is given to us. This itself, you know, gives rise to this kind of conception of a in-between internal narrow content, right?
Yeah, no, I was only wondering, and this is precisely where I thought that in case of the most read and continually read problems of philosophy of Russell, the kind of position that he takes about that, what you have is actually the knowledge of the blue-brown patch that I have immediately. And from that, either it's a good explanation that there is a blue-brown object or it's a construct. But to that, I was wondering that, the language of the blue-brown patch itself is actually learned through the kind of a process where there is an assumption of an externality. So
yeah, of course, that is the kind of argument that one can give. That I mean, it's the old Riley's thing that
right.
Riley's false coin argument.
The robust common sense, which they seem to advocate subsequently, seems to be belied in their philosophical writing, particularly at that period.
Right. I understand where your concern is coming from. Yeah, I understand. And about Schopenhauer, let me refrain from responding to that. Having absolutely no understanding or knowledge of Schopenhauer, let me refrain from answering that. We can take it up later. Yeah. Thank you for being there.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure. What a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Shibangi had a question.
Yes. Good evening, ma'am. First of all, really thank you for this wonderful interaction and talk on this subject. And because, my PhD is also on externalism and speech acts. So it was, so I was very much able to, follow and relate to what you said. Especially, I don't really have a question as such, but I have, just to share that it really felt nice when you said that you felt difficulty in actually identifying what is internal and what is external. And because I too face this difficulty, and also, I could, do you think that there's a possibility of, applying externalism to other domains, the way we have used the theory of speech acts? So is it possible that a theory like externalism that explains the constitution of our mental states to be applied in other domains, such as, say, ethics, or even how we understand our own bodies? Then we can talk about gender. What would be the application of the theory of externalism? This is what I'm curious about.
Well, if, for example, your beliefs about your body, are you asking me the question whether our beliefs about our bodies have narrow content or wide content?
No, I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to understand that apart from what externalism explicitly claims, so apart from what this theory is all about, can we actually apply this theory to other domains? Understanding maybe ethics, or maybe the question of gender identification. Is there a possibility? That's what I'm curious about. It's just a curiosity.
Now, I have never thought about this. What would you say? What would you think? How would one apply externalism and internalism debate, or externalism about mentalistic content, to gender identity? Well, a kind of social externalism, maybe the kind that we get from birth. Okay, maybe we can apply our our beliefs about gender identity, how they are culturally constituted. Of course, that can be done. Okay.
Yes, and I think I had particularly social externalism in my mind. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shivangi.
You there,
Anybody
Nilambar?
have? Yeah, I am. Yeah, I have just.
I can't see who you are.
He's Nilambar, ma'am.
Yeah, there's a power
Nilambar.
cut. There's a power cut due to something.
Okay, so
Oh gosh,
so
Yeah,
you're
so
in the dark. I've
yeah,
left
I'm
you
in
in
the
the dark.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Can I
Yes.
ask a
Oh,
question?
yeah,
Manoj, of
please.
course. Manoj knows my book well, so he will ask me a difficult question.
No,
Because
no.
actually, there was a book talk in Rabindra Bharati where Manoj was. You were there, right, Manoj? You spoke that
Yes,
day. You
yes,
and
yes, yes.
Moina, both of you were there, and both of you spoke. Yes,
Sangeeta
go
was
ahead,
also there.
Manoj.
Mhm. Uh, Actually, I have two questions. I mean, I would like to understand more about these, two issues that I'm going to, raise. The first is about the distinction that you have made in your book, between causal and constitutive. Uh,
Right.
and so one would say that the causal relation between the world and our mental states is not
Mhm.
enough, and we need a constitutive relation. So the world need to constitute, constitutively in relation to our mental states.
Right.
And you have talked about McDowell and others. Um, Recently
I didn't
I
talk about, sorry, I didn't talk about McDowell and others in the relation of causal constitutive
no no
relation.
no 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 no
Mhm.
no no.
Okay. Yeah.
McDowell figures in your in your discussion. So that's why I'm saying that McDowell, in relation to his view about the nature of mental states and the world, he says that uh, uh, causal relation itself is constitutive. I mean, I'm trying to understand. I mean, I'm still struggling to understand how the causal relations themselves are constitutive relations. So that means we don't need anything, extra
Right.
to say that constitutive relations are beyond the causal relations, and in a way, if we emphasize on the constitutive relation, we need to be careful that causal relations are not left out. That's another,
Right. Right. Right.
implication. Yeah, that is first question. The second question is about. Uh,
Can I just answer this one?
yes, sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Sorry to stop you there. Okay. So what is it to say that causal relation is a constitutive relation? Okay. Maybe it would be handy to articulate the kind of relation that we're talking about. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say I say that a relation R is constitutive and yet causal if there is some X such that X constitutes one standing in R to something and also causes one's standing in R to that very thing. Okay.
Mhm.
So if we understand a relation like this, then that relation would be both constitutive and causal. Or we could, understand the causal constitutive relation in another way, let me try to articulate it. Suppose I say that A causes B, but A also constitutes B, because B could not have existed and not have been B unless it was caused by A. Okay. So this is the kind of causal constitutive relation that we are thinking of. These are the two ways that we can articulate a causal constitutive relation. And let's have an example. This is my favorite example. Let's take a footprint. Okay. A footprint is caused by a foot. Okay. But it is the kind of footprint it is. It is the footprint it is because it is constituted by the foot. Because it could not have been the very footprint unless it was caused by that foot. Okay. So this is the kind of causal constitutive relation that we can think of. And another thing we'll note is that I have written this in my book, that in teleosemantic theory, you know, the kind of theory that Ruth Millikan and Pierre Jacob are giving, they are really a kind of, I have tried to argue, I don't know if I have succeeded, they are, I feel that they are also talking about causal constitutive relation. And okay, now let's look at, again, we are going back to Fodor, and Fodor is saying that we cannot identify mental states, intentional mental states, in terms of broad content, because we cannot understand their causal powers. We cannot assign these states causal powers unless we identify them in terms of narrow content. So narrow content, okay, are both causal and constitutive things of mental states. Okay. So, I mean, it's not only that, you know, McDowell or I myself are saying that there is a possibility of causal constitutive relation, but there is in the literature as well. Okay, you had another question. I don't know if this satisfies you.
Yes. The second question is, you know, you have talked about, you know, given. I mean, how, you know, we are wrong to think that, you know, we are not receiving the bare given in our perception. I mean, how it would be wrong.
I say that we are wrong to think that we are given the given. We are wrong to think.
Yes. So, you know, I was in that context, I was wondering that would, if I may call it, content conceptualism, would how it would fit with content externalism.
Right. Good. Yes, that is a difficult question. Really is. Now, do you see, you have to tell me why there may be a problem in bringing these two things together.
Yeah,
if externalism is a view that the mind-world relation is such that the relation constitutes the relata, then content externalism and conceptual externalism will go hand in hand.
Yeah, I'm okay with content externalism. I mean, many people have talked about the way they have talked about conceptualism is that I mean, conceptualists, they are saying that conceptualists are trying to reach out. I mean, trying their best to reach out to the world. I mean, to get the content of the world. But there is still a boundedness, in their view. I mean, there is still a boundedness of of mental state, which cannot possibly reach the world. This is with conceptualism.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
So that's why I saw a possible tension between.
Yeah, no, there is a tension, Manoj. Manoj, I just understood that there is a big tension there. The thing is that, in demonstrative thoughts, okay. Now, my question would be, are demonstrative thoughts conceptual thoughts?
Yeah, demonstrative
and if
thoughts
so,
are
what are the concepts involved? And if so, how do we understand the involvement of those very concepts there? This is an interesting thing to explore. Do you have any idea, or maybe Abhishek, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Any thoughts?
I guess, I mean, this tension is what gives us the friction.
Okay, the conceptual, non-conceptual distinction.
Yeah, as I've also demonstrated in that, I mean, write-up, that distinction that we're talking about here, I mean, is what, I mean, constitutes the friction.
The friction between?
The friction that grounds the concepts in the, I mean, world. Like, I mean, I would say in the case of enchanted, I mean, naturalized patronism. I mean, and the whole conceptual realm into, I mean, that friction grounds the conceptual realm in the realm of experience.
Okay, I get it. I thought the friction, I understood the friction in a different way. I understand what you're talking about. But
it's
surely...
It's the very constitutive restraint.
Yeah, okay. And I must say that, Manoj, we have right now tapped a point which we need to think about. Okay, thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Didi.
Thank you, everybody. Anybody has any questions?
So when we are asking questions, if it will be good for others if we switch on our camera so that everybody else can see you. Yeah. It's just a small request. We still have some time for the quick Q&A session, and we would love to have your voices.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any kind of queries.
Queries, questions, suggestions, observations, anything.
Please feel free. Okay, great. So,
Hello.
Yes. Urchishman.
Urchishman is willing to ask something.
Hello, ma'am.
Urchishman.
Hi, Urchi. Hi.
Wonderful talk. Many things to ponder about. I hope I followed most of it. To ask perhaps a naive question, the thesis that mental content is constituted by states of affairs in the world or by the world itself seems to me to rely on an integral premise. If I were to
Sorry, what premise?
On a premise, if I were to formulate the premise in my own terms, I'd say the premise is that there are certain things that can only be given in the world and not in the mind. And true externalism would say that these particularly worldly things constitute what is mental or mental content. And first question, do you think that formulation is right? And if it is, a second question, could we conceive of anything as belonging to the world only, of being extramental, characteristically extramental, without the inner outer distinction, which you're trying to bypass?
The second question first. Okay. So if there is something that lies beyond our, our conceptual capacities or our cognitive capacities and our, experiential capacities, then I would rather not talk about them. Okay.
Right.
So this kind of transcendent, objects is something that I would refrain from talking about, and actually I wouldn't accept. Okay. Whatever that would, you remember that, this transconceptual, transcognitive, transphenomenal senses of transcendent realism that we talked about in our metaphysics class following Chandadi, that sort of objects. There may be, but I'm not going to talk about that.
I was asking about common worldly objects, ma'am, not transcendent objects. I don't think so.
No, in the sense that they cannot be objects of our mind, right? Okay.
Yeah.
They cannot be in principle objects of my mind. If you say, because my mind has a particular kind, because there are sounds that I cannot hear, so I cannot really say what it is like to hear such a sound. Yes, okay, but there is always a possibility. Had I been a canine, I would be able to hear that sound, etc., etc. Okay, and about the first thing, the first question, okay, was about there being objects such that they needed to exist only then we could know them, right?
Yeah.
The idea is more like that there are ways of thinking about objects, okay, such that the ways of thinking ensure the existence of those objects. Okay, so the very idea that if there were no objects in question, there would be no thought. And if there was a different object, there would be a different thought, really says that there are ways of thinking which precludes the possibility of the absence of the object and the presence of thinking. Okay?
Yeah.
More strictly, they are daily thoughts. Okay?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Uchi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Wonderful talk.
Thank you, Uchisman. Thank you, ma'am. I guess we are almost over our time, but still, if anybody has any questions, they can ask. If not, then we
can take at least one question. I mean, is
yeah.
One or two questions, quick questions.
If anybody has any questions, they can, unmute themselves and ask.
If not, we will conclude the session.
Okay, Nilambar?
Okay. Yes, so thank you very much, everybody, for this lovely participation. And thank you, Professor Sen, for this wonderful talk. And I request Amritanath to convey the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Nilambar. Thank you, Amrita.
Before we close this evening, a quick note for all attendees. Please do mark your attendance on the seminar registration page. The link has been shared here in the chat as well as in the WhatsApp group, and it will remain open until 9 p.m. tonight. And you guys can download your certificates as well once your attendance is marked. And now, on behalf of the entire team of Poorvam International Journal of Creative Arts and Cultural Expressions, I want to thank Professor Madhucchanda Sen for this extraordinarily generous and rigorous conversation, and obviously Nilambar for his thoughtful moderation. And of course, thank you each one of you for bringing your curiosity and engagement to this evening. We look forward to welcoming you back for the next edition of Authors in Conversation on 19th April 2026 at 6 p.m. IST, where we will be in dialogue with Professor Janardhan Ganeri on his remarkable work, Fernando Pessoa, Imagination and the Self, a journey that moves from the street of Lisbon to the metaphysical forests of ancient India, exploring that it truly means to be a self. It promises to be a very special evening, and details will be shared across our channels shortly. Good night, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.